Hello and welcome to the Tuesday, February 9th meeting of the Finance Committee. Pursuant to the Governor's order suspending certain provisions of the Open Meeting Law, General Laws, Chapter 30A, Paragraph 20, as well as the Select Board's emergency order dated March 16th, 2020, the Finance Committee will be using remote participation for this meeting. The audio of this meeting is being recorded and will be posted to the town's webpage within 24 hours in accordance with the Governor's emergency action requirement of keeping the public informed of actions during this meeting. I would ask that all participants remotely attending this meeting please state your name for identification purposes each time you speak throughout the meeting. At this time, I will take a roll call of committee attendance. Ms. Ziemer.
Here.
Mr. Maxwell.
Here.
Mr. Alfred.
Present.
Mr. Whitaker.
Here.
Ms. Nersessian.
Here.
Mr. Murphy.
Here.
And of course, I am here, so we are now officially in order. So let's start off with the administrative matter of minutes. Mark sent out 2 sets of minutes. Did everybody get a chance to review them? Hopefully the answer is yes, so we can stay up to date on minutes. Okay, does anybody have any comments or concerns about the minutes? And this is for, what was it, February 2nd and January 26th, I believe, Mark? Okay. So if nobody has any questions and everybody's good with approving them, I'll entertain a motion to approve those 2 sets of minutes.
So moved.
Second.
Okay. Any further discussion on the minutes of January 26th and February 2nd? Okay, hearing none, let's proceed to vote. Ms. Ziemer?
Aye.
Mr. Maxwell?
Yes.
Mr. Alfred?
Yep.
Mr. Whitaker?
Yes.
Ms. Nersessian?
Yep.
And Mr. Murphy?
Yes.
And I vote yes. Okay, so we're now caught up on those minutes. Good. So now let's get right down to business on the budget reviews. With us tonight, as you know, first up on the agenda is the Council on Aging. And we have our Senior Center Director, Linda Marshall, here, along with our Town Administrator and Mark also. Mark, I don't know, is it Kafferline? I don't want to mispronounce it, but in any case, I don't know which one, who's taking the discussion tonight to lead the way.
Well, Mark Kafferline is going to be your new building inspector. He's going to go for the building inspector budget.
Right, that's true. I forgot. I'm getting ahead of myself here.
No,
so,
I can introduce him after. I think if you have Linda up first, would you like me to share her budget, or do you have that, Ken? I think
you can share it, Travis. I just wanted. Are you going to address it, or are you going to have Linda do it? I guess.
Oh, Linda's doing her budget.
Okay. So go ahead, Linda. You can unmute and start talking. Travis will share it here.
So the basic budget, we did, move some things around, but stayed within the guideline. Almost all of the funds that I moved were related to the new programs, or the change, I should say, in programs that we've been doing relative to COVID-19, primarily our nutrition program that moved from a completely in-house program to a completely home-delivered program. So that caused 2 increases for us. One is all of the packaging supplies that are required for delivering meals, as opposed to in-house where we use real dishes and real silverware, et cetera. So we're paying for all of that, but we're also paying drivers additional salaries to deliver those meals. Right now, we're now up to 50 meals that we're delivering twice a week. At this time, CARES Act funding is paying for both of those needs, but anticipating that if CARES Act funding is not available, we're going to have to determine how we will continue to pay for those meals being delivered, assuming that at least into the beginning part of the next fiscal year, we're not going to be open to be serving meals in-house. I see that as probably the last program we're going to be able to open up. So at this point, everything I've moved into clerical salaries. Regular salaries. Regular salaries is put in place when we joined with the MWRTA. Our drivers are actually Town of Holliston employees. So there had to be a means to pay them for vacation time, holiday time, sick time, and for any senior center needs that were not related to driving. So that's been at $5,000 pretty much as a base for a few years. So everything that I've moved pretty much has gone into there. So you'll see under the administrative assistant line, there was a decrease in $1,762. And that is something reflected by the fact that we have a new assistant director, and he was started at a lower pay rate than our previous assistant director was. When you go down into energy and utilities, over the last 2 to 3 years, we've had some renovations to the center. All of our windows and 3 of our 4 doors were replaced with more energy efficient models. We've also had some insulation at the roof line that was installed. So that's clearly shown a decrease in need for our utilities. So I feel very comfortable pulling the $1,500 from there. Building and ground maintenance, you'll see the minus $12,000, and that's simply reflected of last spring at the town meeting. $12,000 was put into that as a one-time use for repairs needed because we did not meet code in the kitchen and a safety code at the front door. The other area that I moved from was communication, and I'm going to speak about that in a moment because at the time that I did the budget, $1,500 was adequate to move out of there, and again putting it into that regular salaries line. Everything else is pretty much the same. There was a slight increase that I put in professional services. We have a new contractor, and it's just a small amount more each month than what our previous contract was as far as cleaning the center. However, since the point in time of doing the budget, matter of fact, it happened over this past weekend, we became aware that we would have a new cost. Over the last few weeks with COVID-19, with the need for vaccines, we have had tremendous pressure on our phone system to the point that we were having to man 5, 6, 7 phones at a time over the last 2 weeks, and our system was crashing. Chris Mayo did some legwork to determine was it an equipment issue versus a bandwidth issue. Not that I know what that means. But it's determined that we didn't have the bandwidth to support what we had. So he went to both Comcast and Verizon. Comcast could not match the Verizon deal. So we used CARES Act funding to actually purchase the equipment, Chris did. But then it is now going to cost us $70 a month that we were not anticipating at the time this budget was made, for a total of $840 for the year. The select board approved that amount last night conditionally that my COA board approves that amendment to the budget tomorrow at their meeting. And secondly, if you recall, last year we had made a request for a part-time administrative assistant. That position last year was approved both by the select board and also by you folks. I have some demographics kind of showing some of the changes in support of the new position. We have seen tremendous growth over the past, it's been 7, 8 years since we've had an increase in staffing. And I also went back to when I first started in 2006. Travis, do you have that sheet, the support of a new position?
I do. It was in
Yes, it's in the packet. You don't just for in the interest of time, you don't need to review the statistics. Believe me, we've dealt with Bob Malone over the years, who's given us the numbers every year, telling us there are more seniors every year. So,
well, and the reality is there are more seniors every year.
Yes, yeah, but I'm just saying we have that information already in the packet, so it's okay.
Okay. So the one thing I will note that I've also recently learned that we have funding from several sources. So the town is really only one leg of our financial source, with over $150,000 actually coming from other sources to support the senior center. One of which is the formula grant. The formula grant is currently funded at $12 per senior. In Governor Baker's proposal for the next year, that's going to be lowered to $9 per senior. Now, the dollar figure, we're still going to be all right, because between the 2010 census and the 2020 census, Holliston's 60-plus population went from 2,586 to 3,873.
Growing.
So those would be the ones that fill out their census. So we're still going to end up with about $3,800 more if that $9 holds. But clearly it doesn't reflect proportionately to the number of seniors that have increased that we're serving. The MWRTA pays for the bulk of our transportation program, and the Senior Support Foundation pays for the bulk of our programs. We use our formula grant primarily to fund our nutrition program. We've also gotten a couple of substantial donations to help with our program. For the third year in a row, I've received a significant donation from an anonymous donor. This year, it will pay for 2 months' supply of meals because we were going to run out of money before we ran out of year at the current rate of meals that we're providing. So we definitely have the word out there in the community. It's somebody that heard me speak at actually Celebrate Holliston several years ago, and he came forward back then. And we certainly appreciate that support and many more smaller donations that come in, as well as contributions from all of the participants in both our meals programs and in our fitness and other instructional programs. Yesterday, we served 200 baked stuffed shrimp dinners to seniors in Holliston. About 55 were delivered. The remaining 140 or so came and picked up their meals. And that is about either the fifth or the sixth large drive-by event that we've also hosted in addition to our twice-a-week program. We have tremendous volunteer support that, in spite of COVID, are coming into the center on a regular basis. Our receptionists to answer our phones, backup receptionists that we've had to start bringing in to help answer the phones, folks that help us with the lunch program, and a variety of other things, maintaining social distance and all the other things, and providing PPE or whatever where necessary, and cleaning supplies. It's been a challenging year for us, and I think we've done well rising to that challenge. But we're asking for support to help us continue with the growth that we're seeing.
Okay. Well, before we open it up, I just wanted to point out to the committee that if you look at the budget that was presented, there's one thing I just want to clarify. I'm trying to pull it up here, so it's not cooperating. There was a column that said expended fiscal 21 and another one that said expended fiscal 21. The one on the left should be appropriated fiscal 21.
I was going to ask that question. Thank you.
Yes, and I don't know why Drive isn't cooperating here, why it's not letting me look at this file. Okay, I don't know. It's something weird. Let me try this one again. There we go. Okay. Okay, so as I said, all the narrative information is in your packet. So, in the interest of time, she doesn't have to go over all that. Okay, Mr. Alford, you have your hand up, so I'll let you start the questioning.
Yeah, so just a couple of things. Someone maybe with better memory than me, did we actually approve that additional position, or do we just sort of imply tacit support? Because last year COVID had hit before we started approving any budget. So I'm just trying to understand what
So it was approved prior to COVID. Once COVID struck and we went back to the 0% budget, it was removed.
So that would mean that it was not actually, Ken, do you remember? Because we would not have actually voted on this.
Correct. We didn't actually vote on it. In a technical sense, we didn't actually vote on it, but we were in favor. We were generally supportive, I guess, in the conversation we had with the Council on Aging.
Okay, that was my memory, but I just to be clear, we did not actually approve it. I mean, I'm just trying to
right, and just for Linda's sake, that's just a technicality. When we talk to you, until we take the formal vote, which is usually the end of our budget process, we haven't made any recommendations officially, and that's all that Mr. Alford's pointing out. We can say to you, yeah, we think we're good. We were good with this, but until the committee actually votes, it's not technically official support. So,
the $840 for the telecommunications. I mean, do you anticipate that once COVID, the peak of COVID, maybe even the peak of the vaccine goes away, you may not need that extra $70 a month, and then are we signed into a contract that for some period of time, or can we throttle down when we need to?
So basically, even before this, Chris May, when I had spoken, that the time was going to come that we were going to need more bandwidth as we become busier and busier, and we had intermittent problems over the past. I see this as a longstanding need because this is only going to grow. As our usage of the center continues to grow. It's what I was brought on to do 16 years ago when I joined the senior center. They wanted us to grow programs, to grow usage, and we did in spades. So I do see that as a continuing need. It's an essential need right now, but I do see it as a continuing need, assuming that the center will come back into be the vibrant place that it has been over recent years.
Okay. And then lastly, and I realize that there are probably HIPAA rules and everything that make this probably more difficult. But do we have some sort of sense and tracking of who in our senior population is getting the vaccine, hasn't? Are we like? And I know I'm sure it's not like official tracking, but just trying to sort of figure out, making sure that they are getting the vaccine, that they do know how to get, where they're supposed to go, and all of that.
We have been working in stages on getting that information out to people. Anyone that's registered with the senior center, we've sent out a couple of robocalls to, and we have volunteers that are there right now assisting them in registering for a vaccine. Last night, CARES Act funding was also approved to assist with extended transportation, which is another increased need, because we're not going to be able to meet within our transportation budget the anticipated need of getting everyone to their vaccines, those that cannot drive, especially with locations not being nearby yet. We're hopeful that there'll become more availability in the closer area that will save some on transportation. A specific number, I know Chief Cassidy was on last night, and even he doesn't get the reports from the state in terms of real numbers. We're going to send out a town-wide robocall that was going to happen today, but with the weather and changes, that did not happen, but probably will tomorrow or Thursday, to try to reach the rest of the seniors and or neighbors and other people in the community that can alert them. We're sharing information about the 211 system for those seniors that are able to work through there. Some we know have heard from their doctor's offices who either have or will be getting the vaccines and will be going there. For the population, the 75 plus, overwhelmingly, they're wanting the vaccine. The only couple that I've talked to that are not sure isn't because they're afraid of the vaccine. It's because it's so hard for them to physically get out of their house that it's like, I don't know if I can do that much if it's too much of a bother. And although at some point there will be vaccines given in the home, the two that I spoke with wouldn't qualify based on today's expectation, and that is the person would need to either require a wheelchair, an ambulance to leave their home, or a two-person assist. So somebody who's 93 and walks with a walker, and he needs one person assist, she's not going to qualify for that home vaccine.
Well, look, it's been a pretty tough year, and I'm sure you guys have definitely worked very hard, and we all appreciate the work that you do with that 36 or 3,800 residents in town.
3873.
3873, excuse me. Probably one more from yesterday, since yesterday, so anyway, but so thank you, and we'll see what we can do.
Thank you, my pleasure.
Hey, Michelle, you had your hand up?
I was just wondering what you're doing about social isolation.
Okay, yes. So one of the other things I did this year was we wrote a grant for reducing social isolation through technology. So one of the programs we're doing is we're putting tablets in the hands of seniors who don't have computers or access. We have brought in through the grant a computer technology assistant who's helping teach them how to use it, either in person or remotely as we go further along. Most of our other outreach is a one-on-one, something that's very different than in the past, where a group of them would come to us and we have lunch with them normally. So we have a room of 40 people and we can see if somebody's having an issue. Now we have to reach out individually to all of those people that we're concerned about. We do have we have a number of online classes going on, both through Zoom and through our friends at HCAT showing them. We have one, just a simple chat with staff where they can just check in, find out what's going on at the senior center, let us know how they're doing. If they have any questions, we can update them on things such as the COVID vaccines, where things are going with that. But it's more time consuming because a lot of it is the one-on-one reaching out.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Okay, I just had a couple of quickie things to follow up on. For the part-time clerical, what is the hours per week that we were looking at for that?
That would be 19.
Okay, it's 19 hours per week. Okay. And the other thing was in looking at the revolving accounts senior center has,
Yes.
only one of them seems to be financially what I would call solvent at this point, long term. The nutrition revolving account is kind of, gaining marginally on the plus side, but the MWRTA on the building revolving accounts seem to be kind of eroding. Obviously, the building account is not very big, but I'm saying, like, I'm looking at the van in particular. The van, had a huge surplus and it's now eaten down to $1,000. So what's the plan? And maybe this is more a question for Travis, but what's the plan to address that issue?
So some of that will be reflected in that we retroactively moved to CARES Act, the transportation of clients to, for the meals, we're actually delivering the meals to the clients. So that brings out some of it. Currently, because of the policy that the state has taken, we're getting our flat rate from the MWRTA, which is about just under $3,500 a month, but we're no longer getting fees or fares or ADA reimbursements because of COVID, they've rescinded the charges. So that has actually dropped our monthly income from the MWRTA by probably $500 to $700. So at some point that's coming back. I don't know when.
Okay. Well, to be honest, I'm thinking about the long-term trend, right? You're looking out over 3 years here or whatever. And, you can see every year your expenses have outstripped your revenues, right? So I understand that COVID changed things even more, but I'm saying there's a long-term structural fault here.
Well, it's because the need has grown. The money hasn't kept up, but the need has grown.
Okay.
And as far as the billing account, we decided, actually speaking with you folks last year, and that money's all been spent now. It just hasn't reflected on here. We no longer have money that goes into the building fund because we don't do rentals anymore. We only allow nonprofits once COVID passes. So we had no more money coming into that. So we had made a determination that it didn't make sense to just carry that $1,100 in there.
Yeah, no, that one, that's why I said I wasn't really worried about the building one. It's more the van one that seems to have a structural problem.
The van one is an issue and is a concern, and probably the biggest one.
Okay, well, that's fine, but I mean, I think that it's just something for the COA to consider, right? Because, as I said, I understand CARES kind of upended things with the van, but just in general, I think that the COA should probably start looking at what the plan is going to be long term to pay for, to basically, because as I said, CARES or not, it looks like you're on a trend to run out of money at some point. So that's just something for the COA to take back from this and that they have to look into for future years. Okay, Mr. Murphy, you had your hand up.
I just have a question regarding the clerical. Back in 18, you had a full-time, I'm guessing, based on 42,000. What isn't going to be happening by just getting somebody part-time?
So basically the clerical from back then, because there was so much change in the position, we had combined two positions and we're working to move that to the assistant director position. We actually had combined two positions to create the assistant director. No more hours. It was just, we combined the two positions. But the amount of clerk is the amount of number of people using the center keep growing. There's more and more documentation and just everything that's required, from the phone calls and the callbacks and entering all of the data into our My Senior Center system is the system that records all the usage of the senior center. So it does a lot of it for us when we're live and in person. Right now, we're actually even having to data entry every single person manually when they come in, but there's reports that are required for that. It's and somebody should do a lot of the basic things like ordering supplies, the data entry, to support for programs. When we're live and in person, the things people don't think about is every single day we're a staff of 3. We're setting up and breaking down tables and chairs, moving things around, making sure instructors are set, processing monies that come in from the different programs. Right now, I spend an exorbitant amount of time opening mail because all these people taking our programs are often mailing in checks. So every day I have mail of just various checks, donations from different programs. Granted, in person, that's a little bit easier, but it still has to be processed every single day. So there are a lot of those tasks. And as we grow, and as the director, as I've been trying to spend more time writing grants, you have a brand new director that will be coming on this spring as I'm retiring. And I'm sure you would like him or her to continue in that vein. There needs to be some relief somewhere. Right now, I'm comfortable doing this, and part of it is because of COVID, but I do 50 or 60 hours a week. But that can't continue forever either.
Okay. That's perfect. I was just asking regarding what would happen, what was happening. I didn't fully understand what was going on in 18, so perfect.
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay, Travis, you look like you want to add something.
Yeah, I don't have the ability to raise my hand because I am a presenter. So I just wanted to mention one thing that Linda just said, and this is something to consider. We are moving along with the hiring process. Linda is spearheading the screening committee for applicants for her own replacement. And then that will be passed on to the final panel, which includes myself, Yvette Keene, and Chris Mayo. So we're hoping to move on a relatively aggressive timeline. The reason I pointed out is strictly to mention the fact that the way that this budget was voted by the COA is flat based on the fact that obviously all the budgets you've seen don't include any COLA assumptions for FY22 because we're going to come back to that. But this is also a flat assumption under the administrative salaries up here. You know, when there's an applicant, the range that we posted, it's possible that Linda's replacement would come in at not at the exact dollar amount that she's going out. So it's just something that I wanted to bring to your attention. Obviously, when we have more information, we can have that discussion as we progress in the budget process, but it's just something I wanted on your radar.
Okay, duly noted. Any last questions for Linda? Okay, thank you very much, Linda. We appreciate it. And since this is the last time we'll see you presenting a budget, thank you for your service to the town for these years. And, Senior Center is running very, very well. And we really appreciate the effort you've put in over the years.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank
Good
you.
luck.
It's been my pleasure.
Okay, and now you can go enjoy your evening while we continue talking about numbers. So, yeah. Okay, so next up is, now it's Mark's turn. And I apologize, Mark. I was not thinking because Travis was talking to me earlier today about COA and he mentioned you and I just totally got it confused in my head. So welcome aboard. And Travis, I don't know who's going to help because this is Mark's first time and he's extremely new. How are you going to handle it, or is he going to handle the presentation?
I figured I'd let him introduce himself. We can get into any of the specifics, but he's presented this to the select board. So, and he's also, just so you're aware, in the packet, he provided, based on some questions from the select board, he provided some revenue information, which is included in the packet that you have from him. And I'm sure he can answer any questions you have on that, but I'll let him take it away. And if he needs my help, he can holler. Let me bring it up for you here, Mark.
Hello, everyone. Nice to meet you. I'll just point out some of the changes, and then you guys can ask me some questions because there are some increases. We'll just go over those first. First would be administrative salary. The number from last year was the inspector that left, and then the new number is me coming in. And the communication number went up a little bit due to a cell phone. I got a cell phone. And the computer licensing. So that is going forward is going to be $10,500, $10,000 of which is the license agreement with People GIS, and $500 is for the maintenance for the link between UniPay or Unibank and to configure all that. That's the maintenance for that. And then, I don't know. I don't think there's many changes other than that. The $2,500 fee was actually to link in the purchase equipment capital outlay was actually to link UniPay with People GIS initially. And then that $500 kicks into the $10,000 yearly to maintenance it.
Yeah, so I think this was, and you would have had this conversation with Chris Canny. This was the capital purchase of GIS. Last year he asked for this, which has got everything, all of the payments, and Mark can talk about how it works and how it's been working, especially during COVID, has been a positive thing. This was to link People GIS's purchase to Unibank, and now this is the ongoing annual cost of running People GIS with the Unibank hookup.
Yeah, just to say a little bit about it before you ask questions about it, it's really unbelievable, the flexibility and the knowledge, the information right at your fingertips to be able to look at building permit applications and to communicate with other departments for approvals. And if we're sent home because of snow, we're home because of snow, I could spend the whole day reviewing permit applications, going back and forth with contractors. It's great. It's limit the people from coming into the town hall, especially during COVID. Most of I'd say more than half from what I've seen since I've been here the 3 months, the payments get paid online and go directly to the treasurer. It's really a great system.
Okay, see that Mr. Murphy, you have a question, so I'll let you get things started.
More of a comment, something for you to watch out. There's a couple lines. The vehicle maintenance is $700 and office supplies is $700. And I'm just looking at the previous few years, and vehicle maintenance doesn't look like it's ever gotten up to 700. Office supplies was 700 at one point, but I'm wondering with all the new additional digital stuff if we're going to need that. And probably not to answer it now because you're new, but something to think about and look at for next year's budget. I mean, this year we'll leave, in my opinion, let's leave it and see how it is, but it's just something to consider and think about next year.
Yeah, it's funny how you say that. We were just talking today about ordering office supplies because we are short. Chris and Lisa did spend a good period of time out of the office at the beginning of this COVID. So, but yeah, duly noted. I'll take a look at it for next year, see where we're at.
Okay. Ms. Nersessian, you had a question?
Yeah, just can you talk a little bit about the revolving account and what the revenues and expenses are?
Yeah, so revolving account, okay.
So that's the plumbing, electrical.
Yeah, no. I'm just looking at the numbers from this year, yeah. So the expenses, the revenues obviously are actually from the plumbing, gas, and electrical permits goes into this revolving account. And that's how we pay our inspectors monthly through this revolving account. So any monies coming in from those permits are put in this account, and that's how we pay the inspectors.
So those are people that we're hiring to do the inspections for those particular aspects.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
And there's also an alternate building inspector in there because as you may not know, in the calendar year 2020, there was 800 permits pulled, just building permits, not including gas, electrical, and that's way too many for one inspector to handle as far as inspections. So there is another local building inspector that periodically does inspections when the commissioner needs to stay in the office more to keep up.
The ones that are paid through the revolving fund, generally speaking, are done on an event basis. So it's based on the amount of inspections that they do. And so it's a little bit of a different model. So when you look at the salaries that are paid up here. That's the 2 full-time people, the inspector and the administrative support. And then the other inspectors on an as-needed basis get charged through the revolving account, and their revenues go in there as well.
Okay. And on average, and maybe you could take it, so you said 800 this past year. What about the year before and the year before that? What were the volume of requests coming through?
I have to, I'd have to pull up a report for you. I can do that while we're talking. I can just go into my.
I just pulled up, Mark, this is what you would put, this is what you
Yep.
to the select board. So this is FY20, this report, which shows permit numbers here. And Sue, this is in the packet as well. If anybody has any questions, obviously you can email Mark.
So, yeah, this
is through February of FY21. Both of these are in the packet. Go ahead, Mark, sorry.
yeah. So if you go back to 20, Travis, please.
This is FY20, yep.
Okay, yeah. So there was 795 building permits pulled, and you can see sheet metal permits, plumbing permits, electrical permits, the cost of the projects, the base fees that came in from it. So, I mean, really, if you flip to now, this fiscal year, Travis.
This is through February 1st of 2021, yeah.
Yeah, so this report is through February. So we've gained cost of projects basically, and, you know, base fees have gone way up too. So we're projected to be higher, you know.
Is does it tend to run sort of evenly throughout the year, or I would presume there are different times of the year where people are pulling more permits, or is that not how it's?
It's very sporadic. It's construction now isn't it like years past was based on like when the spring hit, they started doing, I mean, I think I've had 3 or 4 applications between Friday and this week for new construction, getting ready to start digging holes. A lot of commercial tenant fit up stuff. Yeah, it's very sporadic though. There's no pattern to it.
It might be worthwhile just to see what the prior year was, because obviously 20 took into account COVID, and I think a lot of people started doing a lot of homework, at least working on their home, not homework, but working on their homes when COVID hit. And I'm just wondering, sort of, do you expect that sort of 800 number? You said you expect it to be a little bit higher this year, but do you expect that going forward, or do you think this is all sort of contained because of the situation with COVID and more of a sort of focus, you know, inward on home renovations, additions, et cetera?
Well, yeah, I mean, there was a little jump, but again, I've only looked at the past couple years because I'm new here, but I mean, if you want me to look further down the line, the last 5 years, and take a look at it, but it definitely
more informative.
There's been a jump in Massachusetts everywhere for sure because of this.
Yeah.
I mean, Holliston it's a very busy town. I was actually surprised there's a lot more commercial work than I thought there would be there. So, and
just one last question. I think last year we were told that sort of available land for new homes had really come to its fruition. Like there wasn't a lot of open land for people to build. And so I guess I wanted just to validate that was actually still, I mean, I don't know how we would get more land, but that was actually, I'm recalling it correctly. And then 2, I presume that more of the building is on additions and things like that than new builds, or are you seeing?
Well, so today I just assigned, I'm working with the assessor, getting on parcel IDs that on a piece of property that just had an A&R that took 1 piece and turned it into 3. And
okay.
I don't really know. I'm still 3 months into it here, but from talking to the town planner, I know there's a couple really big chunks of land still left in Holliston. It's just a matter of what happens to them.
Okay.
And there's parcels out there that are 10, 12 acres with an existing house on it that could be subdivided. So But you're
That
right, land is gonna run out eventually. I mean, it's inevitable.
We're just going to fill in Lake Winthrop. That's it. No, just kidding.
That's right. That was it. Thank you
That's-
very
that-
much and welcome.
And I will point out that's an interesting trivia question. One of the very interesting trivia questions is there's one country in the world that expanded its land area by 20% without war or taking somebody else's land, and it was Monaco. They filled in part of the Mediterranean to expand their province, their state many years ago, and that's the answer to the trivia question of how you can acquire more land. Just fill in the water. Okay, Mr.
I
Murphy.
don't think the Conservation Commission will allow that here.
That's right.
And thank you for the trivia. Did you go up, you mentioned you went up in fees? What did they go up from what to what, or percentage-wise?
I don't know. The fees went up before I got here. Maybe Travis can speak to that. I don't know what the fees were before I got here.
We can run that. I don't have it in front of me though, Vin, sorry.
Just curious, because the revenue's gone up so much in this, which is good.
Yeah.
Well, so
And I will point out that if you extrapolate the run rate, it's about the same as FY20, right? It's higher, but not, it's like last year was 795 and the run rate right now is like.
No, I'm
88.
just looking at the applications through February or through the end of January. It's 528 revenue versus 471 for the whole
No,
time.
revenue wise, it's higher, but I'm saying that we're talking about permits. And I'm saying the permit rate is running about just slightly above what it was last year.
Okay.
I believe one of the biggest change in it was minimum fees from 50 to 75 and from 75 to 100 with commercial. And I know we're basing it on $8 per thousand. I don't know what it was before, Travis. Was it $7 or $7.50 per thousand?
I'm not sure. We should probably put that just as a comp out there so that everybody's
Okay, I'll look into that. Yeah.
That happened before my time as well. I know you're here a short time, and you're the only reason I'm not the newest person. So
That's got to be on the agenda of one of the meetings from the select board because they had to vote on that, correct?
yeah, I'll pull that.
Okay. Sorry, I couldn't answer that.
That's okay. That believe me, we understand. We don't expect the answers instantaneously for when you've only been here a little while. So
Enjoy
next
the
year,
breaks.
though.
Yeah, then we'll be getting
Next year, you're going to really drill me?
Exactly.
That's right. That's right. We're going to be sharpening our pencils more next year.
Okay, this is training this year. I'll be
The
ready.
one thing I wanted, this is more for Travis, is less on the budget, but more on a procedural thing that does impact the budget. One of the things I'd like to put on your radar is the whole GIS thing, because we have now this piece, right, the people GIS and the building department budget, but the assessor also has a piece of GIS, like their GIS pieces scattered. And this might be something, I don't know if you want to take a look at in terms of how are we going to fund it? Is it going to become a centralized software resource like Munis? I'm not implying that we need to change anything, but I'm just saying that we now have, just like Munis, we now have GIS scattered around. And to be honest with you, I think that one of the things that we need to look at is, are we using all the pieces effectively, right? One of the things that came up several years ago before either of you were here was GIS being used. We had different departments using different aspects of GIS, but they all tie together, right? You can have the system the assessor talked about where, you can pull up in GIS and see, the property information, the pipes under the ground information, the permit information, all this in, centralized. And we never, at the time it was kind of relatively new, but I think that's one of the things, that's why I said I just want to put on your radar to look at is, how do we go forward budgeting for GIS, and are we using all the different pieces we're paying for? Are we integrating them together well enough to really leverage them for the best advantage of the town? So
Yeah, no, I think it's a good point. I think it speaks back to a brief conversation we had last week when we were talking to Karen Sherman with planning and the idea of, at some point, engineering services may change the way that we handle it in town. When it comes to, the biggest users of GIS in any town are going to be your building inspector, your assessors, and then your DPW, generally through an engineer. And so, I think Mark has been working more and more with the assessor. And I think we also know that we're probably going to have some turnover. I think Kathy's made that clear in the past. So, I think in the next in the not too distant future, we're going to have to look at how we're using GIS throughout the town. And yeah, I mean, some of it is, when it comes to some of the conversations we've had, we're relying on outside engineers to sort of look at some of our GIS when it comes outside of the building and department and assessing department. So yeah, it's a bigger picture question, certainly.
Okay. Any other questions from the committee for the building inspector or on the building inspector budget? So if not, then we'll move on. Thank you very much. Welcome aboard, Mark.
Thank you. Nice meeting
We'll be hearing
everybody.
a lot more from you in the future.
Yeah. Look forward to it.
Next up is Mary, and we always like talking to Mary because she always gives us great financial news, right, Mary?
I do. Do you want the good news or do you want the treasurer collector budget first?
Let's do the treasurer collector budget first. Save the good news for later.
Okay.
Is it real good news?
Hey, don't spoil her party. Let her get to it in due time.
Okay, administrative salaries is $102,144. Administrative assistance is $166,286. That includes the new HR benefits specialist we just hired, who will start next Tuesday. The assistant collector and the assistant treasurer, who are both on steps. The clerical salaries are $88,602. That's the principal clerk on the payroll side, one on the tax side, and they are also both on steps. Longevity is $250, and I'm the only one that has longevity in the department right now. And the certification stipend is $1,000. Professional services is $25,000. That includes the printing of all of our bills. It also includes the online fees that we pay for Unibank. We're trying to get more departments to use Unipay and offer online services, so that keeps increasing. And they've upped their fee from 25 cents per item to 50 cents per whatever's in your cart. So I'm not sure how that's going to shake out for us next year. Foreclosure and legal is $11,500. Communications, $13,298. Office supplies, $5,000. Professional development is $7,000. The new HR specialist is going to need training because he doesn't have a municipal background, and includes 3 of us going to the annual treasurer collector school, either virtually or hopefully in person. It's for a grand total of $420,080.
Okay. Anybody have any questions? Okay, if not, I just have a couple of quick ones, Mary, that I know.
Michelle had something.
Yeah,
Oh, okay.
So I
Raise your
just
hand.
thought of
Go
something.
ahead.
So previously, we were paying a maintenance from the building department. We were paying a maintenance fee from Unibank to link to People GIS. That's different from the Unibank increased fee you were talking about.
Right, so Mark is paying for the connection between Unibank and People's GIS. I pay for when you go out and sign up for a building permit, they charge me, now they're gonna be charging me 50 cents to do it. We've been picking up the fee for people using the online payment since we started with it.
Okay, so those are,
So it's 2 different transactions.
okay,
His is a maintenance and mine is a per use.
okay. I just wanted to make sure we weren't.
We're not double dipping.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, Mr. Murphy?
Yeah, quick question, Mary. Just how come foreclosure legal is going down? And I'm guessing we didn't roll in the legal for foreclosure into the agreement that we have with whatever the name of the firm is.
Tellerman does not do our foreclosures. It's Louis Costello, Condon and Fack that takes care of our tax title accounts. We have a revolving fund that you can see at the bottom that has $16,000 on it. So I felt comfortable dropping the legal budget to 11.5. We are dwindling down the number of cases that we're putting into land court. Land court's been on hold for the past year, so we've been pretty lucky. We've been sending out a lot of dunning letters. They have been paying. So I think we're in a good shape for legal.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, I just had, as I said, a couple of points of clarification. One was the whole Unibank thing, which is already answered. But one thing that I saw in here was the communications budget, right? If you look at what was appropriated in FY21, it was 12.5, and you're already blowing through that, almost entirely in the first half of the year. So
Well, a lot of that is because of the
historically, it
election.
hasn't been that high. So I guess the question is that COVID related? And if it is, are we budgeting appropriately next year for it?
Part of it's COVID, part of it is the elections, when the town clerk did all their mailings. So my budget upfronts the money for the postage machine, and then we charge back the departments. So we have not charged back for anything that's been mailed after January 1st. And I'm not sure if the number that Sharon has reflected shows that last quarter in here.
Well, that'll get credited from other budgets. I think that answered the question that you had mentioned previously, Ken, which is we have centralized postage machine in the town hall printer area. You have to use a code depending on your department, and then that all gets essentially reconciled. And that's what Mary's saying, is that once those other departments get charged, this number in her budget will go down and be charged to their departments.
So Mary basically receives the bill for the postage use, and then it gets parceled out based on the usage.
On
Okay.
usage, yes.
Each department uses its own code.
Okay. Just wanted to make sure, because that one looked like a very, very clear outlier in terms of going way over what it's budgeted. So, but I get it. Okay. Any other questions for Mary on the treasurer collector budget? Okay. Let's move on. Now we get the good news.
The good news is debt is going down. So professional services is $4,000, and that's to do our continuing disclosure to the SEC. Principal long-term debt is $2,200,000. Interest on long-term debt is $198,638, and general interest is $2,500 for a grand total of $2,405,138. So we have all exempt debt left.
Actually, so this is one thing. So this is also in your packet. It just shows all the debt. And I have it till 30, but obviously we can give it to you by beyond that for projection for water debt. This is a visual of where we are. So these are things that I think Ken covered at town meeting, but the drop from 20 to 21, now from 21 to 22, and then going into 23, the debt issuance for sewers is going to come off. So 23 is even larger substantial impact.
Travis, can you go back?
Well,
You guys-
high school and middle school that are coming off in 23. They're
Right.
not officially coming off, but most of it is. So,
Can you just go back to what the debt was rolling off was? Just the other slides or other, yeah. So what are we? So it's town, and this is inside the levy debt. So 200.
no, this I think is, I was going to say it's non-excluded. So
Non-excluded is
we're done with.
right within the levy. All of that is now gone. The last ones were Town Hall and Pinecrest. And
Right. So
then-
one thing is that's $225,000 of freed up budget for 2022.
Correct.
Yes.
Because if it's above the levy, it just goes away. So it does not
Right.
actually.
That's correct. So I
But as I said, if you look at that, you don't have to show it again, Travis, but if you look at that detail, you'll see that the big nut from that's coming off in 2023 is the last little residual payment on the high school and middle school, right? That's the 1.5 million right there that drops.
Yeah, but that's
Of course, as you point out, the sewer payment's done. The sewers we don't have. What?
That's next year.
No, I know next year, but that's the final big drop, right? Then it kind of gets down into the lower levels, but okay. Anybody have any questions on the debt budget? Okay, and we can move on from there. Just keep in mind, of course, that we're going to see at some point debt from the water treatment plant. So there will be new debt on there, but it'll be under the water enterprise category.
Right.
So, okay. Anything else for Mary on either of these two? Okay, then I guess we'll move on. So Sharon, you're up next. I see Sharon.
Yep, I unmuted. Can you hear me?
Oh, there we go. Yep, there you go.
Here I am.
All right. Pretty straightforward. There's really no fluff in the budget. At the moment, my salary is level funded. The Cheryl's salary, the increase is, she's got steps that she's going through. I know qualify for longevity. There's my certification stipend that's been in there for a few years now. The audit is the same as last year. I'm pretty sure next year it's going up, but I think it's only by $1,000, but 22 was the same. And basically everything, communications went up slightly because it's just my phone bills and they went up just a little bit. Office supplies, professional development. This year, all of our classes got canceled and they were online, but I would like to think that in 22, we might actually get to go back to school and have in-person conferences. So I left that level funded as it was in 21.
Okay. Not a very complicated budget, of course. That's why we have.
It is not.
Any questions for our town accountant? So, okay, then I guess we're good. So you're easy. As I said, your budget's relatively straightforward. There's not much controversy or difficulty understanding what it's being used for. So,
right.
Thank you very much, Sharon.
You are very welcome.
Okay. Okay, so that's it for budget reviews for this evening. So we'll move on.
Tim had something.
Ken,
Oh, Tim, okay, I didn't see your hand up there, Tim. Go ahead, Tim.
If Mary doesn't mind, I have a brief question as I was looking.
I don't think Mary's here anymore. Is she still
No,
here?
I'm still here.
Oh,
Okay.
So Mary,
Oh,
it's
there
just
it is.
for my own understanding. I'm a little confused when I look at the principal for tax for it's 2,300,000, but in the budget it's 2.4. What's the difference there? So Travis, if you scroll down to that next page.
Okay, so this is the budget look, and this is how Mary has it set up. Just so we could have gone through this. So the way that the DE1 is set up, that's all of the excluded debt, right? So what you're taking is principal 2.2 million. The interest on that is just under 200,000. Then reimbursements, those are from the MSBA. When that project that Ken mentioned rolls off next year, the MSBA reimbursement under their old model where they paid us as the debt service is paid, this will be the last year we received this 951,000, but that's a good news story because the debt comes off next year. Then Mary has adjustments, and then this is the amount that essentially shows up and we can raise above the levy limit. So that's our excluded debt. And so the budget that she has here is 2.4. And then you're asking me to go to the next page that shows it in a different format?
I think you just explained it.
Okay. So this
Those are
is
the
principal.
adjustments that you see for $9,300, Tim. Those are premiums we received on our bond issues that we have to give back to the taxpayers.
Okay.
I just have a question. This is Vin. What's the $2,500 for general interest?
That is if we go to the appellate tax board and they require us to pay interest at 8% to the taxpayer.
Why does it come out of you as opposed to assessors?
We just put all the interest, it's always been in this budget.
Okay.
okay. Anything else? Okay. And I'll just point out for the members, I did ask a couple of times if anybody had any questions. So, I get one person saying, move it along, another person, people don't ask questions. So trying my best here, people.
You've done a good
okay.
job.
So, okay. So are we done with the budget reviews? Last call. Okay. We're good. Okay. Then let's move on to any updates from our town administrator. Thank you very much, Mary and Sharon.
You're welcome.
All right. Yeah, a few updates. So we just got off the OPEB trust call at 5:30 today. That will be Video will be posted online if you'd like to watch. Odyssey, give the actuarial update, or Prim/Prit, give our financial update on how that money's performed. The OPEB Trust also voted the $1.5 million appropriation into the OPEB Trust for FY22. Additionally, I apologize. I should have sent to you earlier with my email to you the CARES update, but I did send that to you right before your meeting today. And it looks like Chief Cassidy was able to join us, so I think that's separate on your agenda, so I'll leave him to that. Something you all have discussed and came up, I was requested to have an update on the town hall doors recently. We have another date of February 22nd that they've said even if it's snowing, they will tent it and do it that day. I will warn you that we have heard something similar to that in the past, and there's some skepticism, but also hope. And if that were not to come to fruition, we may have to take action against the contractor. Sorry, go ahead, Dan.
When you were interviewing, did you at all think that the town hall doors would take up as much time of your time in your first 6 months on the job?
From my research, I knew it would come up.
Well, that is true. You did do a lot of research.
The other, somewhere else, newer in town hall is the town hall floors, which are through the CPC, funded for $100,000 at our December town meeting. We received 2 bids. The lowest responsive bidder, was $71,000. And so that will be awarded to O'Sullivan. I don't have a start date on that work though, but I would hope that it's done maybe before the doors even. The stipend committee gave a report to the select board last night. I sent that to you all. It has been posted to the website. Select board did not really do anything other than accept it. We'll obviously be discussing as we move forward. So I think we can all, read it and discuss it. We can discuss it at any point. I just wanted to let you know that has been given to and accepted by select board and posted online. Additionally, the Blair Square Committee.
Wait, Ken, if I could just for a second.
Okay, I was going to wait till he was done with his update so you could go ask about anything. But if you want to do it now, you can. I mean, would you want to wait till he's done?
I can wait till he's done. Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. Blair Square Committee also came to the select board last night. It was a robust agenda, to quote Chief Cassidy. So I think essentially what they telegraphed is that they're going to have a request for this Maytown meeting. I think my response was essentially any procurement of what they're talking about, which is probably going to be design engineering, is going to need to be procured through the town administrator's office as the chief procurement officer. And with that, I will need substantially more when it comes to the scope of what that would look like as an RFP. So that's sort of how we left the conversation. The numbers that were thrown around, just so you're aware, was a study in the $54,000 range. Again, until I see the scope, I don't know that that's really the request. So I don't have an article yet. And that was discussed, but again, that's sort of how we left that conversation. I expect more information to be coming up. The only thing that really changed about the charge of the Blair Square Committee was that they were asked to also factor in changes to the traffic pattern of Front Street being a one-way. I don't know that would change what they're looking for an article. They did take their request for design to the CPC. The CPC said no for the cost of drawing up construction documents, but when you have construction documents, it may be a project that the CPC would fund in the long run. So again, that's more to come on that. I'm looking for more information as well. One other thing that I don't think I brought up previously to you, and there is some financial components, so I just wanted on your radar, is a resident brought forth to the select board an idea of a farmer's market in Blair Square during the summer for one day per weekend between June and I think September. They were essentially asked to pull together some more information, talk about who the fiduciary would be, who would be receiving the revenue from vendors coming to a farmer's market and then paying for things like police details or trash pickup or putting Blair Square back into sort of condition it was before a farmer's market. So that was how it was left when it was first presented to the select board. I think that will be coming back. The solution being through a Friends of group that is a 501c3 that can run that. I think, at this point, I expect it to come back to the select board I did do some due diligence on how some other towns around us run those types of programs from a town perspective. It ranges from less formal in I think it was Norfolk I spoke with, to extremely formal when it comes to Natick, and then in between was in Ashland that I talked to as well. So again, I don't think it would impact the omnibus budget or anything of that nature, but it's something that, you know, will probably have a financial component to it that when I have more information, I'll bring back to you. And that is it that I have for right now.
Okay, Mr. Alfred, I know you had a comment.
Yeah, sorry for interrupting, Travis. I just would like to request, I briefly read the report from the Stipend Committee and read what the Holliston Reporter wrote anyway, but what they said, and I just had some questions for them. I appreciate the fact that the select board did not disband the group. I thought that was the right decision, especially, you know, given there might be some questions at town meeting. But before we even get to town meeting, before we vote on anything, I'd like to actually request that at least a representative from that group comes in. Just from my reading, I was under the impression, based on the conversations we had with the assessors last year, that actually there were some discrepancies there. For instance, I didn't think that the training that they talked about being annual was actually mandatory training. So I just want to have a little, and then there's some other stuff that, you know, I'd like to discuss with them in a little more detail. And so that's more my request to the chair rather than to you. But
Well, I can reach out to the chair of the Stipend Committee and see if I can get somebody to come in and talk to us and put them on a future agenda.
That would be great.
I will do that.
And then if the assessors want to be there at the same time to discuss just that, so that we don't have to go, you know, do two different things, that might be helpful.
Okay, well, maybe if I can get them, if I can arrange it right, maybe I'll try to get them both on, you know, when the assessors are here for their budget review.
Sure.
So, but no guarantees on that. Okay, Sue, I see your hands up.
Yeah, Travis, in terms of the farmers market, will there be an analysis done on all of the costs, the impact to, because I presume it would be sort of impacting where the trail is, and so just the usage of the trail in terms of day. I'm all in favor, by the way, for a farmers market, but maybe not in that location, just given the traffic on the trail, et cetera, and the limited, candidly, there's not much space down there unless sort of the town takes over additional space. But just, I think it would be helpful just to understand all the additional costs in terms of police and cleanup and, you know, anything else that may come into play as sort of that gets evaluated.
Yeah, I think it's a great point. I think one of the things that the select board is going to have to consider with this request is the frequency, right? Every weekend for a summer is kind of how it was pitched. That does seem like a substantial use of what is a public space. You know, Tina Hine can probably speak better than I can too. We have counters through Blair Square that show just the, you know, significant usage of the trail as it relates to Blair Square specifically, you know, the whole trail, but Blair Square specifically and on weekends. So I think it's something the select board is going to have to consider when it comes to the costs and those types of things. I mean, that's sort of the first part that we said was, you know, a business model is needed here, right? You're going to need, there can't be any traffic impact if there needs to be a detail. You need to be able to fund that through all of this. So I think, you know, there's the component of, do we want to use the public park, I would call it, for that use or not. So I mean, I don't think it's a done deal, and I think there are some other locations that they may want to look at, but that's what's been pitched, I would say.
Okay. I mean, there are, like, you could think about the schools, right? I mean, I think about next to Town Hall. I don't know who owns that property there, but I think about how it works in Natick, and it's on a space that isn't like sort of I mean, it's in downtown, but it's sort of off to the side, which is nice. And so you can have people easily park and then get access. So I do think the trail is just as you said, it's widely used. And I think that there are logistical concerns aside from the cost as well. So
right, yeah, and the Natick one was interesting when I spoke with them. That green is essentially like incorporated outside of Natick, so they sort of have their own control over it. They obviously work with Natick. Ashland used to be like that. Now Ashland owns the land that they've had their farmers market on for the last 10 years, and then has a license with this 501c3. And then Norfolk is just a license with a group and kind of ebbs and flows year by year. So, I think there's a few different models, and I think all of the questions that they were sort of asked to come back with will be interesting to see where that goes. I think the schools are right near there, right, for ancillary parking. Might be an option, but yeah, we do not own the property next to Town Hall. That is the Congregational Church. That was one that was brought up in the conversation as well. And then the community farm is one that I think may not be ready this summer, but I think in the future is something that any, farmers market possibility would definitely be a good fit potentially.
Yep. Okay. But you'll come back to us when you have more. Okay.
Yes, absolutely.
Okay, now, Travis, I had a couple of questions. One, of course, is you hit on and I think that speaking for if I can guess what the committee feels is a pet peeve of the committee, which is I heard the word study to the tune of $54,000. Explain to me why we've had a Blair Square committee doing all this work and formulating a plan for the area that now would require $54,000 in studies.
So this would be, as I was explained to me and what was pitched to the CPC, is to draw up construction documents that could then lead to a construction project, right? So it's the actual engineering. I think, the liaison from the select board to that group has been Ben. And so one of the things that Ben has sort of said is, and what I discussed with the whole group on Monday night is what is the scope that would go into 54,000, because where's that number coming from, right? And I think there's a couple things that they're talking about. One is changing the direction of the trail as it goes through that area. Another one, I can't remember all the components. I'm not up to date. What I need them to do is sort of tell me what you would put in a scope for construction documents so I could actually be able to price that out. Because that's really what's going to drive it. And so I guess you're right. The word study is probably not the right word. What they're looking for is actual construction documents that can drive this forward. But again, I think what they have right now is the conceptual, and there was a rendering that was drawn up by Beals and Thomas, I want to say, that was shown. And so I think it's taking it to the next stage, which would be getting them prepared for something to bring to the CPC, get money and put shovels in the ground.
Okay, so that certainly clarifies it, right? So you're not paying somebody to tell us what to do with the space. You're actually is this payment for preparing actual construction documents for doing the work? That definitely, as I said, I wouldn't use the word study for that. The other question related to that is, I know we don't have the exact answer if we don't have the construction documents, but do we have a ballpark for what the cost of this is going to be? Like, is this going to be a couple $100,000 to reconfigure what the space is already? Or is it going to be a $2 million to do what they want to do there?
So and this was from bringing the Collins Center capital report forward. The number that they had been carrying was $400,000. I'm not sure what they based that on. I have the description of it. The highest number that I've heard, but again, this is what I'm looking for, is I need to know the scope so that I can sort of see this as well. But the highest number I heard was 500,000. And then more realistically, once, I think the conversation had been whether or not there were going to be actual bathrooms or anything installed as infrastructure. I think the way that the conversation, my understanding for Monday night was that would not be part of it. I think that you're going to see the substantial amount of the cost when it comes to construction documents, first off, decrease substantially from 54,000, and then also a cost of 500,000 go down substantially if you're not talking about citing public bathrooms.
Right, and that was, I'll get you in a second, Michelle. The last question I had related to that was, I'm glad to hear that there shouldn't be permanent bathrooms there, because there's a lead into my next question, which is, aside from the bathrooms, which were one of the operational expenses that I saw coming out of this, are there any other issues with the proposal that was presented? I wasn't there, that would lead to ongoing operational costs for the town, things like trash disposal and stuff like that we don't have already, I should say.
So we have added a trash bin in the area, and I think No, I don't think anything specific to Monday night. I think in general, when it comes to managing the trail and maintaining the trail, I think I'm still looking at how that should be long term. Obviously, we're getting a lot of work done through the volunteer efforts of that group that, you know, you already had Robert in here and you all recognize that, so I won't beat that drum. But I mean, at some point, additional sort of DPW / parks maintenance of the trail in general is probably a conversation we're going to have in the coming years. But there wasn't anything that group talked about Monday night that I would say that's a nightmare to maintain once the conversation. I mean, from a public bathroom perspective, that's a nightmare to me. But you know, if the community wants to go for it, I'll go that path. But that from a maintenance standpoint would be substantially higher than anything they talked about. I mean, it's a lot of greenery. It's a lot of just sort of, I think they've gone back and forth on, you know, I don't want to call it a gazebo. I think they have another word for it, but I can't think of it. So I'll just say gazebo. And memorials, a veteran statue and those types of things were all pretty much the main components of the design that I did not take away anything saying that's going to cost us a lot to maintain.
Okay, well, the summary of what I was trying to say was, it's easy to say, oh, the cap is, 400, 500,000, maybe less. It's kind of like there's the cap of the capital cost and there's the ongoing cost. And that's all I wanted to know. It sounds like there wasn't anything added, which is certainly a good thing. Okay, Michelle.
Pavilion was the word.
Pavilion, okay, there you go. Go ahead, Michelle.
That was my question, was ongoing costs once it's built. If there was some thought of giving it to Parks and Rec, or if it was going to be maintained by volunteers, what the thought was about that.
Okay.
And if you don't mind, I'll just to follow up the comment, because Tina put it here, and I don't think it'll end up on the call. Otherwise, is 600 people pass through Blair Square on a Sunday. Peak in the summer is closer to 1,200 based on 13 months of data collection, and that's being collected. I want to say it's Eco Counter is the company, and it's in conjunction with MAPC. We have those counts going on right now.
Yeah, so I mean, even not that this would actually occur, but even if you assumed, 24 hours, the trail was in use 24 hours, evenly spaced out, that's still a lot of people per hour during the peak hours. So, okay. Any other questions for Travis before we move on? I will add one thing that related to something Travis said, which was about the OPEB Trust Board meeting. I attended that before we got on here. And I just wanted, for the committee's sake, to just give you a quick 2-second update on what they said. Our investment is on track. There was an increase in our OPEB liability due mostly to actuarial changes. Obviously, there were changes in the covered population over the last 2 years since the last reval. But the bottom line, to save everybody the trouble, because you have the material, you can go look at it in your own time. The bottom line is that when we started the funding, we were looking at an early 2030s type of thing, around 2033. And with all the changes that have been made and everything as it's performing to date, we are on schedule with our $1.5 million contribution to basically finish exactly on time. So I know sometimes there's a perception that we're way ahead of schedule, or but according to what was presented today, we are on track with our original plan of 2033 to reach full funding. And also, just as a metric, we are at 34% funded right now. So it's not as though we're, again, that's great, and I'm not taking away from our progress, but it's not as though we're, right around the corner from full funding. We still have a ways to go. So, okay. So let's move on. Okay, any liaison updates? I don't know, Michelle, do you want to cover the schools? Or do you want Dan to do it? Do you want me to do it? Okay.
So we did finally meet with the schools. Still very, very early. We're all trying to gather information. As everyone here knows, the budget outlook for what we have on the town side is still sort of up in the air with everything. And so they're all trying to get some stuff, but there's definitely a lot of moving pieces over there. And, but conversations have begun. So that's very positive.
Yeah. And to add on to that, we have, when we met with them, they agreed on the need to start meeting more regularly as we go forward. So we're setting up in a week or two, we're going to set up our regular weekly meetings like we did last year prior to town meeting. So starting in a couple of weeks, we'll have updates every week on where the budget is. So, okay, any other liaison updates? Okay, everybody looks okay. The next up is anything related to the pandemic, which I think is Chief Cassidy's update. Yes, so go ahead, Chief. You can give us the weekly summary of where we stand.
Good evening. For the second week in a row, we are in the yellow risk designation, which is moderate, according to the Department of Public Health, based on the number of cases that we've taken on recently. I would expect that when they release their updated metrics on Thursday, we will likely remain in the yellow again. And as the town administrator indicated just before your meeting tonight, he did send out the snapshot, which is pretty much a one-page summary of where we are on the municipal CARES spending to date by category, as well as some projections based on votes that the board has taken and authorization for spending, so that we've sort of got a prediction of where the balance of the 1.3 million on the municipal side would be as of the end of March, because a lot of the approvals that they've been making since December have been for the quarter as opposed to for an extended period of time, just so that we can continue to evaluate on an ongoing basis.
Okay, Michelle, you had a question?
Yeah, I know that the deadline's been extended, but are we due to get more money?
There are currently no expectations that there would be additional funding on the municipal side. The expectation is that the schools will likely see some additional earmarked funds for education in consideration of the need for schools around the country to reopen and expenses related to that. Obviously, we're already in session and hybrid model for some grades, but that would likely be, based on the last prediction I heard, was probably going to be less than $100,000 additional for them. But currently, there are no expectations that there will be additional funds on the municipal side.
Okay, because like when we heard Linda talking about the food being delivered and all of that,
Mhm.
is there going to be money for that through the end of the year? Doing that?
Yeah, so the board did authorize the meal delivery program those expenses being paid by CARES through the end of the fiscal year.
Through the end of the fiscal year. Okay.
Okay, Travis, you wanted to add something?
Yeah, Michelle just made a point that reminded me, the finance committee voted and then the chair signed a letter with the school committee chair and the select board chair to the congregational delegation. I believe it was handed to me to send to them on my first day, which was town meeting, so July. And the select board has asked that I look at another letter specifically to Congresswoman Clark that would be this sort of similar vein to say that we're looking for this funding. I spoke with Congresswoman Clark's office the other day just to sort of say, you know, what would be helpful to hear from a town and start that conversation. So I guess I would say at this point, you know, is that something the Finance Committee is interested in pursuing as well? And if so, I would be looking to bring that to you relatively shortly.
Depends on what's in the letter, I guess. So
I will get you.
But the one thing I will add is it's congressional. I think you said congregational, and so the first thing I was thinking was like we're sending it to the church or something. So
Yeah.
Right. I apologize. It's late.
I know, I get it. That's why I said it was just kind of comical when you said it. So
Just make sure you thank them for what we have. That was
Yes.
one of my problems with the last letter.
okay, so Chief Cassidy, I'll ask you the same question I ask you every week, which is
Okay.
equipment, PPE, all that stuff. No issues, no financial issues related to that.
No issues related to PPE, and I still have a federal grant that would allow me to purchase additional PPE that I have not even tapped yet. The period of performance for that was August of 20 through August of 21. So even if I needed to wait and make a purchase at the beginning of July in FY22, I still have a lot of flexibility to be able to purchase additional PPE as needed.
Okay. Mr. Maxwell, you have a question?
Just looking at the attachment in the email, what's the, I'm curious about a couple of the abbreviations. NFE?
Right. So when you look at things like PPE, certain PPE is eligible for FEMA reimbursement and certain PPE is not. So my internal designation is non-FEMA eligible.
NFE is non-FEMA eligible. Okay. And then under the votes and projections, VMS rental, vapor management, what's VMS?
That's a variable message signboard, similar to what's out front of the town hall.
Excellent. Thank you. Thank you.
Sure.
Right. And just for the record, we should be getting, I think, 2 of those based on December's town meeting, correct, Travis?
I believe the ones that were requested through TAC, the Traffic Advisory Committee, are in our possession. And I believe Police Chief was had an onboarding with the vendor in the last month or so.
So that's an expense we shouldn't see anymore, right? Now we own our own message boards. So, okay.
I think the other uses for those message boards that TAC was interested in is the fact that, you know, the data collection and those types of things that help make better decisions. So, I mean, I think the idea here was if we want to leave something around town specifically to message out what we want to continue to message out. I think the idea here was we don't want to use necessarily the other message boards. We want to be able to have the capacity to do it on a grander scale. But no, I understand what you're saying.
Right. My point is if they're not in use, we use them. So, yeah. Okay. Go ahead, Michelle.
Yesterday on Facebook, Carolyn Dykema posted something from Hopkinton saying that they were having vaccine available. Do you know, is that going to be regional, or is Holliston, well, I doubt if Holliston Board of Health is going to be having its own vaccine. Do you know what that's about?
So the site at the Hopkinton Senior Center is available for statewide population. So it is not a geographic restricted site as some other communities have. So when there are appointments available, Holliston residents who are in either phase 1 or 75 and older would be eligible to get an appointment at Hopkinton.
Okay. Thank you.
And that will be part of the messaging that will go out via Blackboard tomorrow. I heard Linda's comments earlier. I did not want to send the message out today while we were still in the process of having our internet access upgraded at the senior center, because I didn't want the old phones to get overwhelmed, but I did get confirmation from the technology director that they had 11 phone lines in operation and there was no lag or call dropping. So very appreciative of the vendor who was able to very quickly turn around the upgrade that was approved by the board last night.
That'll make it much easier, especially for people who have transportation issues.
Yeah, so the messaging will include not only 211, which is just to help with scheduling, but it will also note that if they have need for transportation, that the volunteers at the senior center would be available to assist them.
Thank you.
Sure.
Okay, any other questions for the chief on the COVID update? Okay, then we'll move on. Thank you very much, Chief.
Absolutely.
Okay. Last up is anything for FY22, and I do have one thing I wanted to add here, which is the governance committee has been in touch with me, and I know I've polled the members about available dates. It looks like the 23rd is going to be, I'll rework our agenda for the 23rd to have that discussion with the governance committee. We should have the documents and their proposals well ahead of that date. But I thought I might have them today, or might have received them today for distribution to the committee, but I did not get that, and now I'm being told it might be next week. So as soon as that happens, I will pass the documents along if they just send them to me, or if they send them to everybody. Obviously, everybody will get them directly from them. But that will include their proposed draft bylaws. So I would encourage every member to read them carefully, because obviously if this is going to change the structure of governance, they've already made it clear they have changes to the finance committee bylaw, the select board bylaw, the town meeting bylaw, and things like this that they're proposing. So I think that since we're impacted by this, we definitely want to make sure we read them carefully and determine any feedback so we can have a fruitful discussion with them when they come to meet with us. So, okay, yes, Travis.
Just on the schedule, I'm just looking at the 23rd. So, and obviously up to you. I'm just thinking conservation, library. Are you planning to get them done? And then I'll be presenting either myself or with James Keys, select board, wastewater treatment plant, public buildings and facilities management. So, I mean, we can drop to the end. I'm just thinking, however.
Yeah. I have to look at it. I want to look more carefully before I just kind of, I know I have to move things around. I don't know whether I want to move dates or whether I just want to push things later. And as I said, the things that I know you're going to represent later or something like that. So I'll figure that out over the coming days.
Sounds good.
Okay. But as far as FY22 goes, there really is no new information from the state concerning the budget. So there's nothing really to report there. It's been, in a sense, relatively quiet from the state because things are now in the hands of the legislature, and I don't know where they stand. At some point, maybe between now and our next meeting, I'll reach out to Pooja and try to get an idea as to what their schedule is going to look like, or whether they're planning on anything like the local aid resolution they've done in the past or anything like that that would give us some kind of measure of indication of where they're headed on that with local aid. But right now, I have nothing. So, okay, anybody have anything else to add on FY22? Okay, if not, then I think that's it. I'll give everybody one last chance. Is there anything anybody wanted to comment on? Questions, comments, concerns? Now is your chance before I'll entertain the motion. Okay, so hearing none, I'll entertain the motion.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
Okay, that is not subject to debate, so we'll proceed to a vote. Ms. Nersessian?
Aye.
Mr. Murphy?
Yes.
Ms. Zemer?
Aye.
Mr. Maxwell?
Yes.
Mr. Alfred?
Yep.
Mr. Whitaker?
Yes.
And I vote yes. That concludes the Tuesday, February 9th meeting of the Finance Committee. Just as a reminder, we are not scheduled to meet next Tuesday, the 16th, because that's traditionally, it is the school vacation week, but traditionally we don't have a quorum during vacation week. So we're not meeting next Tuesday. And it doesn't matter anyway, because the select board can't meet till Tuesday next week because of President's Day on Monday. So it works out conveniently. So our next meeting will be Tuesday, February 23rd. And as you just heard, we'll be covering more budget reviews and also be meeting with the governance committee to discuss bylaw changes they are proposing for this May's town meeting. But for tonight, we're done. So thank you and good night.